The waitress fixed the millionaire's car and said something that made everyone stop laughing. She helped without expecting anything in return and changed the life of the arrogant millionaire. Have you ever been judged by your appearance and doubted? Tell us in the comments. That morning, on a busy street in Los Angeles, Caitlin was walking quickly to work, wearing her simple waitress uniform. To passers-by, she was just another ordinary young woman trying to pay for her studies. But behind that apron, there was a story, unexpected knowledge, and a heart guided by kindness. Across the street, a luxury red Ferrari was stopped, surrounded by rich men, impatient and full of confidence. Loud laughter, ironic remarks, and a millionaire irritated to see his very expensive car simply not work. That was when something unlikely happened. Caitlin stopped, observed, and asked simply if he needed help. The laughter grew louder. A woman, a waitress, talking about mechanics? What no one there knew was that the young woman had learned everything about cars from her father, a simple man who always taught her that helping someone is never too much. In less than a minute, a simple mistake would be solved. Laughter would give way to silence, and that millionaire would be forced to face an uncomfortable truth. True wealth is not in money, but in character. What seemed to be just a broken car would become a moment of transformation, learning, and unexpected reward. Because sometimes a gesture made with no interest at all is exactly what changes everything. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to kindly ask you to like, subscribe, and activate the bell, because this story will move you and make you reflect. Who was that waitress really? And why would that simple help forever mark the life of a powerful man?
Caitlin woke up every day before the sun rose. The small apartment in Los Angeles was still silent when she got up, prepared a simple coffee, and organized her college books on the table. Anatomy textbooks, notes, exams marked in red on the calendar. Becoming a doctor was not a whim. It was a dream built on sacrifice. She put on her waitress uniform carefully, like someone who respects her own path, even though it was not yet the final destination. To many, that apron defined who she was. To Caitlin, it was just a stage. What no one saw was the weight she carried in her heart. Her father had been a mechanic his entire life, owner of a small repair shop, hands always stained with grease, an easy smile, and rare patience. When Caitlin was a child, he would sit her on a wooden bench and explain each car part as if he were telling a story. "Every car speaks, my daughter. You just have to learn to listen." He never said that mechanics was not a woman's thing. He never laughed when she asked questions. On the contrary, he encouraged her. He taught with pride, and without realizing it, he taught something even greater. Helping someone should never have a price. When he fell ill, Caitlin was still a teenager. The shop closed, the bills piled up, and shortly after, he was gone. What remained was the emptiness and the knowledge he had left in her hands and in her heart. Now, years later, Caitlin worked as a waitress to pay for her studies. She served tables politely, endured inappropriate comments, looks of contempt, and exhausting days. Even so, she maintained her kindness, not because she was weak, but because she had learned from her father that character does not depend on circumstances. That morning, as she hurried to work, she thought about the exams that week and how she would need to double her shifts to cover expenses. Traffic was heavy, horns echoed through the street, and the sun reflected off the city's tall buildings. Then something caught her attention. A red car, far too luxurious to go unnoticed, stopped in the middle of the street, hood closed, engine off, well-dressed men around it laughing loudly and complaining. Caitlin slowed her pace, almost without realizing it. Her attentive eyes noticed something familiar, a pattern she had seen before. She could keep walking. She was late. She would gain nothing from it. But something inside her, her father's voice perhaps, made her stop for a moment. She took a deep breath, without knowing that this simple moment would be the beginning of a change none of them would ever forget. Caitlin slowed her pace as she approached the red car. The shine of the Ferrari contrasted with the ordinary asphalt of the street and with the simple uniform she was wearing. The men around it spoke loudly, complained about the wasted time, and made jokes to disguise their irritation. To them, it was an inconvenience. To Caitlin, it was just a problem waiting for attention. She did not think about who owned the car. She did not think about money, fame, or reward. She thought only about what she saw and what she heard. The strange silence of the engine, the dashboard flashing irregularly, the tension in the air. It was something her father would have noticed in seconds. Caitlin took a deep breath and approached carefully, keeping her voice calm. "Excuse me, do you need help?" The millionaire slowly turned his face, assessing her from head to toe. The uniform, the simple shoes, the young face. He let out a short laugh, almost automatic, as if the question were an unintentional joke. "Do you really think you can help with this?" he replied, pointing to the car. Before she could say anything, one of his friends commented mockingly. Another laughed even louder. Caitlin felt the heat rise to her face, but she did not back away. She had already learned from an early age that kindness does not depend on the other person's reaction. "I may be mistaken," she said humbly, "but it looks like the car went into safety mode." The men exchanged glances. The laughter faded for a second, but soon returned, even louder. To them, that attempt was useless. To Caitlin, it was just a sincere observation. She could have walked away right then. She had already done enough, but something inside her insisted. It was not pride, it was empathy. It was remembering her father helping strangers on the road, charging nothing, simply because he could. Caitlin explained, simply, that luxury cars depend on extremely sensitive sensors. A small reading error caused by overheating or a momentary failure can prevent the car from working, even without serious defects. She said this without difficult terms, without arrogance, just sharing what she knew. The millionaire shook his head, unconvinced. "Do whatever you want," he said, shrugging. She knelt beside the car, observed, breathed, performed a simple procedure she had learned while still a teenager. A quick, precise gesture, almost automatic. Everything lasted less than a minute. Caitlin stood up, wiped her hands on her apron, and stepped back, like someone who expects no applause. She asked for nothing. She did not smile in victory. She simply did what she believed was right. What would happen next no longer depended on her.
For a few seconds, nothing happened. The group remained there, surrounding the Ferrari, as if that moment were just another awkward pause. The millionaire got into the car without much conviction, still with a half-ironic smile on his face. To him, it was nothing more than a useless attempt. "This is a waste of time," one of the friends muttered, crossing his arms. "I bet the car won't even start now," said another, laughing. Caitlin remained standing a few steps away. She did not cross her arms, did not respond to the taunts. She simply watched in silence. She had already learned that arguing with someone who does not want to listen is like talking to an engine that is turned off. The millionaire turned the key. The sound that followed cut through the air. The engine roared loudly, steady, perfect. The Ferrari came back to life as if nothing had happened. The laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by wide eyes and a heavy, almost uncomfortable silence. "That's not possible," someone murmured. The millionaire turned the car off and started it again, just to be sure. It worked once more. He got out slowly, now serious, staring at Caitlin as if trying to understand what had just happened. "What did you do?" he asked, not hiding his surprise. Before she could answer, one of the friends tried to downplay the moment. "It must have been a coincidence. These cars do that sometimes." Caitlin took a deep breath, feeling the weight of those eyes on her. There was no pride in her posture, only firmness. "It wasn't a coincidence," she said calmly. "The system went into protection mode because of an incorrect sensor reading. All it took was restarting it properly to normalize it." Silence once again took over the group. Now no one was laughing. The millionaire ran a hand over his face, visibly unsettled. The most expensive car he owned had been fixed by someone he had not taken seriously for a second for. "Where did you learn that?" he asked, his voice lower. Caitlin hesitated for a moment. Her father's face came to mind, along with the smell of oil and the sound of tools. "With my father," she replied. "He had a repair shop. He taught me from a young age." One of the friends looked away, clearly embarrassed. Another cleared his throat, not knowing what to say. That initial laughter now seemed small, almost shameful. Caitlin was not seeking recognition. She did not expect thanks. She simply adjusted her apron and took a step back, ready to continue on her way to work. But something had changed. The judgment made in seconds was beginning, right there, to fall apart. And that scene, which had started with laughter, was about to turn into a lesson none of them would ever forget. Caitlin was already a few steps ahead when she heard the sound of the Ferrari door closing. She did not look back. To her, all of that was already over. The car worked, the problem was solved, and her day needed to go on. There were tables to serve, bills to pay, exams to study for. But the silence that remained around that group was not ordinary. It was not just the silence of embarrassment. It was the silence of someone who realizes they were wrong. The millionaire stood still for a few seconds, watching Caitlin walk away. Something inside him stirred in an uncomfortable way. He was used to being heard, respected, obeyed. People usually approached him out of interest. That young woman had not. She had helped and left. "Wait," he finally said. Caitlin stopped, still not fully turning around. "Yes?" He walked toward her, now without the confident smile from before. There was hesitation in his voice. "How much do I owe you?" The question hit her in a strange way, not with offense, but with sadness. Caitlin thought of her father, of the way he always said that helping someone was not a business. "Nothing," she replied, with calm firmness. "I just wanted to help." The millionaire frowned, confused. That answer made no sense in the world he lived in. Nothing was free. Nothing came without intention. "But you lost time. You could be working." She gave a slight smile, without irony. "Time spent doing good is never wasted." The words hung in the air. Simple, direct, true. The friends, who had laughed before, now watched from a distance, not daring to interrupt. The millionaire felt something he had not felt in a long time. Shame, not because of the car, but because of the way he had judged someone without knowing her. "What's your name?" he asked. "Caitlin." "I am—" he began, but she gently interrupted him. "You don't need to say who you are. I really need to go." She turned and went on her way. She did not wait for thanks. She did not ask for favors. She did not look back. The millionaire remained there, standing on the sidewalk, with the noise of the city gradually returning around him. The Ferrari's engine still running, the expensive watch marking the hours, and a phrase echoing in his mind: "Time spent doing good is never wasted." In that moment, he realized that something had changed inside him, and that change weighed more than any mechanical problem, because for the first time in a long time, the silence forced him to think.
The millionaire got into the Ferrari, but he could not continue his trip immediately. The car was perfect, the engine responded with precision, but his mind remained stuck on that short and unexpected conversation. Caitlin had not asked for money, had not asked who he was, nor shown any interest beyond helping. That bothered him. During the drive, her words repeated in his head like a persistent echo. Time spent doing good is never wasted. He tried to push the thought away, but he couldn't. That simple sentence carried more weight than many speeches he had heard in luxurious boardrooms. Hours later, already at home, the discomfort continued. He found himself remembering his own childhood, a time when things were simpler and gestures mattered more than status, a time that had been left behind without him realizing it. The next morning, something made him act. He asked the driver to take him to the restaurant where Caitlin worked, not to show off wealth, not to feel superior, but to better understand who that young woman was who had walked away expecting nothing. When he entered the restaurant, the atmosphere was simple, welcoming. Nothing resembled the sophisticated places he usually frequented. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air. Tables occupied by ordinary people, quiet conversations, discreet laughter. Then he saw her. Caitlin was serving a table with the same calmness and politeness as the day before, the same apron, the same attentive look, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. She recognized him, but did not change her posture. She showed no surprise. She simply did what she always did. "Good morning. What would you like to order?" He swallowed hard. That confirmed everything he had already suspected. "I came to thank you," he finally said, "and to apologize." Caitlin paused for a moment, surprised, but kept her serenity. "There's nothing to apologize for," she replied. "It happens." He took a deep breath. "I judged you. I laughed. I didn't take you seriously. And still, you helped." She lowered her eyes slightly before answering. "My father taught me that we help because we can, not because the other person deserves it." That sentence was the definitive turning point. The millionaire realized that there was no way to repay her with words alone. What Caitlin had done was not just fix a car, it fixed something inside him. And in that moment, he decided that that help would not go unanswered.
The millionaire returned to the restaurant a few days later, but this time he was not alone. Beside him were his wife and children. There were no flashy cars parked out front, no looks of superiority, just an ordinary family entering a simple place, with respect. Caitlin served them without realizing at first who they were. Smiling, she took the order, offered suggestions, and kept working as she always did. It was only when she returned to the table that she recognized the man whose car she had fixed days earlier. "I brought my family to meet you," he said, with a sincere tone. "I wanted them to see who taught me such an important lesson." The wife smiled at Caitlin. The children looked at her with curiosity and admiration. It made her feel shy. During the meal, the millionaire told the story. He spoke about the laughter, the judgment, the awkward silence, and the sentence that had never left his mind. His children listened attentively. His wife held his hand affectionately. "She reminded me of what really matters," he said, "of the kind of person I want to be for you." Caitlin felt her eyes fill with tears. She thought of her father. She thought of how proud he would be to know that his teachings had reached someone so far removed from the simple world of the workshop. At the end, the millionaire stood up and asked for a few moments of attention. He took an envelope from his pocket and placed it on the table in front of Caitlin. "This is not payment," he said firmly. "It is gratitude, and it is also an apology for having doubted you." She hesitated. She opened the envelope carefully. Her eyes widened when she saw the amount written on the check. It was more money than she had ever imagined holding in her hands. I can't," she began. He smiled with humility. "You can, because you didn't ask, because you didn't expect it, and because your kindness deserves to go forward." Caitlin took a deep breath, feeling tears fall. In that moment, she did not see numbers. She saw opportunities, studies paid for, a dream closer, and her father's smile somewhere, proud. The reward had arrived, not as she had sought, but exactly as she needed. Caitlin left the restaurant that day with a light heart and eyes still filled with tears. The envelope was tucked away in her bag, but what weighed the most was not the amount of the check, it was the meaning of that gesture. She knew she had not done anything expecting a reward, and yet life had responded. That night, she sat alone in the small apartment and spread her books across the table. For the first time in a long while, she studied without the constant fear of not being able to pay for the next semester. There was no exaggerated euphoria, only a quiet peace. The feeling that somehow everything made sense. She remembered her father, the simple workshop, the smell of oil, the calloused hands, and the calm voice saying that character is worth more than any profession. Caitlin smiled through tears, feeling that this moment was his as well. Days later, the millionaire stayed in touch, not out of obligation, but out of respect. He had changed small habits, small attitudes. He began to listen more, to judge less. And whenever he told that story, he made a point of saying that the greatest lesson did not come from a book or a business. It came from a waitress who helped without asking for anything. Caitlin kept working, studying, and helping whenever she could. The money made the path easier, but it did not change who she was. She remained simple, attentive, and kind, because she knew that true transformation does not happen outside, but within. Over time, she realized that life has a curious way of giving back, not always right away, not always in the way we expect, but always at the right moment. Doing good was never a guarantee of reward, but true kindness always leaves marks. And sometimes, when we least expect it, those marks return as opportunities, learning, and stories that deserve to be told. And you? Have you ever helped someone without expecting anything in return? Tell me by writing now in the comments. Maybe your turning point hasn't arrived yet, or maybe it's closer than you imagine, hidden in a simple gesture done from the heart. Share this video so that this story reaches someone who needs to remember that doing good is never in vain. And if this story touched you, don't miss the next inspiring story that is already appearing on your screen. Click to watch.